Hello everyone, and welcome to a very special Let's Play Resident Evil. Now of course, since it's October, the month of all things spooky, and because Resident Evil 6 just came out, I thought now would be the best time ever to do a Let's Play of the original Resident Evil. Now I should probably clarify that I've never played the original PlayStation versions of this game. I've only played the redone remake on the Gamecube, which added a bunch more stuff that just isn't in this version. However, I thought, it would be a good time to go through and see what's different back in the old days. So, I'm going to be playing through Resident Evil 1. Now, we're not going to do both characters because, of course, they're very similar. Instead, we're just going to do the Jill campaign. Now, just let me talk about Resident Evil real quick. The original, this one, was released back in 1996. And was called Biohazard in Japan, but they had to change the name to Resident Evil because it was impossible to trademark Biohazard in America. It was originally meant to be a remake of a strange little NES RPG horror game, Sweet Home, which was similarly themed and set in a mansion full of horrible monsters and puzzles. Instead, it sort of branched off and became its own thing, and defined the genre that would later become known as survival horror. It even coined the term survival horror, which we'll see in a loading screen at some point. This game has gone through 7 releases in its lifetime. The original release, of course, in 1996. And then a later release, a year and a half later, the Director's Cut, which is the version we're going to be playing through, which has the arranged mode, where everything, all the items and enemies, are kind of moved around and shuffled around, so give you a reason to replay through the game. A beginner mode, where all the enemies are weaker and you get more ammo. And it turns back on the auto-aim, which was removed from the English release of the game for some reason, and is really, really helpful, which would become a series staple after this game. Then there was the Director's Cut DualShock version, which mostly just added support for the new PlayStation DualShock controller, which I'm sure we're all familiar with now, the analog support for the 2 analog sticks and vibration. It also had horribly remixed music for some reason, and I'm not talking about just like, it's kind of a... It's just weird, discordant sounds mixed together, and is really bizarre. Which is weird because this is the version that's available on PSN, unless you live in Europe, in which case you can get the original Director's Cut. Then there was a Sega Saturn release for the doomed Sega console, which had the most important addition in the form of the battle game, which would kind of evolve over the course of the series into Mercenaries, which you may be familiar with now. It also had some different monster skins, but they were pretty much the same monster otherwise. Then there was a PC version, which had an uncensored intro that was in color, and a 3D graphics accelerator that made the game look a bit better, as well as some extra unlocks, which aren't really important. Way later, in 2002, there's the, of course, Gamecube remake that I was talking about, which is a remake in the form that we don't really see these days, even with all these HD re-releases. As instead of just scaling up the old game to modern resolutions, it's actually completely redone from the ground up. Everything's prettier, it plays better, it is the best version of the game. However, sadly, they also changed the script, so all of the cheesy lines from the original game have been cleaned up and sound just kind of normal now. Then in 2006, there was a DS release called Resident Evil Deadly Silence. Get it? Resident Evil DS, Deadly Silence. Honestly, I don't know a lot about this, other than that it has 2 modes. It has a regular mode, which is basically this game, with the top screen using up your map, your health, and all the useful stuff you want to know at all times. And then a rebirth mode that added a bunch of touchscreen stuff, like touchscreen-based puzzles, a first-person touchscreen knifing minigame thing. Honestly, that's all I really know about it. I don't have any experience with it. Alright, so that's enough yabbing, in case you haven't skipped this already. Now we're going to actually play the bloody game. We're going to be playing on standard. Don't ask why the audio's all screwed up there. Alright, so now we get to pick our character, as we do in many Resident Evil games. There are advantages and disadvantages to both. For our run-through, we're going to be playing as Jill, as I said. The reason for this is that, unlike Chris, Jill can hold 8 inventory items instead of 6, has less health, but gets much, much more firepower. Basically, there is a unique weapon that they both get. Like, they each have their own unique weapon. And Jill's you actually get to keep, whereas Chris's is only used in one area of the game. Jill also has a lockpick, which is an item that prevents you from having to pick up small keys which are another thing that Chris has to carry around. Really, the only reason to play as Chris is because of his enhanced damage, but for my playstyle, I actually prefer playing as Chris. Still, we're going to play through Jill, mainly because of her support character. She has Barry Burton as her support character, who has some of the best lines in the game. I'm sure you've heard them even if you've never played Resident Evil. Now, because of the awesome/awful voice acting in this game, I'm gonna not talk over the cutscenes.
Alpha Team is flying around the forest zone situated in northwest Raccoon City, where we're searching for the helicopter of our compatriots Bravo Team, who disappeared during the middle of our mission.
You haven't found it?
No, I haven't found it yet. Bizarre murder cases have recently occurred in Raccoon City. There are outlandish reports of families being attacked by a group of about 10 people. Victims were apparently eaten. Bravo Team went to the hideout of the group and disappeared.
Look, Chris!
It was Bravo Team's helicopter. Nobody was in it. But strangely, most of the equipment was still there. However, we soon discovered why.
Hey! Come here! Run for that house!
Chris Redfield.
Sadly, this is one of the only live-action cutscenes in the game.
Jill Valentine.
I kind of really wish they were all like this. But it's only the opening cutscene and the ending cutscene.
Barry Burton. Rebecca Chambers. Albert Wesker. Resident Evil.
What is this?
Wow, what a mansion!
Captain Wesker, where's Chris?
Stop it! Don't open that door!
But Chris is...
What is it?
Maybe it's Chris. Now, Jill, can you go?
I'm going with you. Chris is our old partner, you know.
Okay, let me handle this. Stay alert!
Stay safe.
A dining room.
Very informative, Barry. Anyhow, after that wonderful cutscene, seriously, I wish they were all like that, we're given control of Jill. Pop open our inventory here. You can see our 8 slots. We start with a knife and a pistol. Now, Chris doesn't actually start with the gun. You don't get it until about 5-10 minutes in. Honestly, not really a big difference. I'm with you on that one, Jill. Now, a lot of, pro speedrunner people, or I suppose speedrunners, not so much, but just kind of pro Resident Evil players will tell you that the knife is amazing because it doesn't waste any ammo. But honestly, I'm fucking garbage with it, so we're not going to be using it very much.
What? What is this?
What is it?
Blood. Jill, see if you can find any other clues. I'll be examining this. Hope this is not Chris's blood.
So as you can see, everything is pre-rendered except for interactable stuff. Obviously, this clock is going to be important at some point, since it has a 3D model. Now, even the Gamecube remake used pre-rendered backgrounds, but they look really nice on the Gamecube version. To the point where I find it doesn't even look bad compared to modern generation games. This game, on the other hand, does not look nearly as good as Resident Evil 2 or 3, which have much better pre-rendered stuff. But this is a pretty early game, so it's kind of unfair to complain about how it looks. And it still looks a hell of a lot better than a lot of the fully 3D games that were out at the time. Hold on. Stop right there. Freeze. Yep. It's definitely not what... Oh, okay. Yeah, I thought he lost us for a second. We could, try to knife him or shoot him, or we could just run through this door.
Barry?
What is it?
Watch out! It's a monster!
Let me take care of this. What is it?
Kenneth was killed too. Maybe by this creature. Anyway, let's report this to Wesker.
Try to keep track throughout the game of the number of times these two either say some variation of, "What is this?" or "What is it?" And of course, like almost all zombie games and movies, Resident Evil takes place in an alternate universe where George Romero never existed, and nobody has ever heard of a zombie.
Wesker! Help me look for him, Jill. And don't leave this hall for the time being.
Much like everything else, Barry is bad at looking for people, since he will just kind of walk around back and forth on that carpet, seeing if Wesker is hiding behind the pillars. Let's see if we can go outside, shall we? Alright, so we're not going out there. Now, in the remake, if you check it twice, a dog will actually jump in through the door and then you'll have to fight it. But I don't think that happens in this one. For the most part, this front hall here is the safest place in the game, as nothing will ever attack you here. So, Wesker's not hiding behind these columns. What about back here? There's also an extra area in the remake that has a gate right here that we can't get to. I'll be trying to keep track of little changes like that.
Find anything, Jill?
Nothing. What is this all about? I can't figure it out at all.
Beats me, too.
Now it's Wesker's time to disappear. I don't know what's going on.
Well, it can't be helped. Let's search for him separately. I'll check the dining room again.
Okay, I'll try the door on the opposite side.
This mansion is gigantic. We could get into trouble if we get lost. We should start from the first floor, okay? And Jill, here's a lockpick. It might be handy if you, the master of unlocking, take it with you.
Thanks. Maybe I'll need it.
Listen, if something happens, let's meet up in this hall. This time, I'll be there.
Alright, while Barry stands around in the dining room searching it again, I guess, we're gonna make some actual progress. This door is locked, and we need something with armor on it. Now we can make some actual progress. You can see there's something up in that jar on the top of that statue. This right here is the first example of why the auto-aim in these games is so useful. Say if we're just looking this way, and then we hit the auto-aim button, Jill will snap to that guy even though he's down, so now we know that that is in fact the zombie that is going to try to attack us. Honestly, I think the easiest way to get rid of this guy is to... And we kick his head off. That pretty much is always going to happen, I think, with these down zombies. I think that's an excellent example of how useless the knife is and why we're never going to use it ever again. Oh, ink ribbons. So, if you're unfamiliar with Resident Evil, ink ribbons are a consumable item you use at typewriters scattered throughout the game to save your game, so you can't save infinitely like you can in many later games. I believe this carried over to all Resident Evils until Resident Evil 4, which still had typewriters but didn't require ink ribbons to save at them. Which was just, one of the countless changes that Resident Evil 4 made to the Resident Evil formula, but we're not going to get into that too much. Do we want a map of the first floor? I don't know, I like cartography, so maybe not. Nah, we'll take it. Maps are super useful to have in this game, as you can imagine. Since, as you can see, the mansion is a pretty fucking confusing place. Already, our lockpick is coming in handy. We truly are the master of unlocking. Oh boy. It's this hallway, isn't it? Yep. Ah, jeez. So that's, I guess, kind of the first real jump scare of the game. Now, interestingly, in the remake, I guess they expect you to go into this knowing what's going to happen there. So the first time you go through that hallway, you're expecting the dogs to jump through the windows, and instead the window just kind of cracks, and a little chip of it flies out. And then nothing else happens, so you're like, huh? And then the next time you go through the hallway, the dogs do in fact jump out. So it's a nice little change to try to throw you off your feet if you're familiar with the game already. Green herb. Green herbs are the basic healing item in every Resident Evil game. You can mix them together to get more powerful effects out of it, but obviously we only have one. Is this the bathroom? Yes, it is. Can we... Huh. In the remake, you can drain the tub and there's a surprise zombie in it, but I guess that was too much for the PlayStation 1. Apparently, working mirrors are not too much, though. Though I guess it's not that difficult to do a mirror when the only thing moving is the character. Everything else is pre-rendered. And nothing in the toilet. I guess there's just nothing in here? That's weird. Usually in Resident Evil games, there isn't ever a room that just has nothing in it and no effect. Maybe we have to go back there later at some point. Ah, this is definitely familiar. Nothing like a small room with a nice high ceiling. Can't even tell what that tapestry is of. It kind of looks like some sort of Aztec birdman with a bunch of snakes coming out of his arms. Not really sure. Of course, this is the real beauty of the room. It's a nice shotgun. Oh, that's probably bad. And to no one's surprise, it was a trap. Unfortunately, both the doors are locked, and we cannot use our Master of Unlocking skill to open them. So now we just have to run around in circles until we die a horrible death.
Hey, what's going on?
Jill? Is that you, Jill? What happened?
Barry, help me, please. The door won't open. Quick!
Stay away from the door, Jill. I'm gonna kick this door down.
Hurry! This way!
Oh, Barry!
That was too close. You were almost a Jill sandwich.
You're right. Barry, thanks for saving my life. But Barry, didn't you say you're going back to the dining room to do some research? Why on earth are you here?
I just had something I wanted to check. Now, let's get back to searching for the lost captain and Chris, shall we?
Thank you, Barry.
Yeah.
So I don't think anyone was too surprised by that. Also, Jill's sandwiches. Oh, our first customer of the day. And is he dead? I can't tell. Usually, you can tell an enemy is really dead if you see a pool of blood come out of them, but he's laying in a pool of shadow, so can't really tell. That guy's not dead, though. Oh, and now he is. Oh, shit. Nice, doggy. I know where we are now, too. We don't actually need to be out here, since there's nothing we can accomplish yet. And now we've got our first proper puzzle of the game. From cradle to grave. I think it's a fairly simple puzzle here. You examine these paintings. A picture of a tired middle-aged man with a switch. All of these paintings have switches, and as you can see, they're all of different ages of people. So I think you've pretty much all solved the puzzle already. These crows watch on disapprovingly. So let's see. Picture of a young man. No. Picture of an infant. Not quite. Actually, we passed it, didn't we? Silly me. Picture of a newborn. Alright. And then, I guess, picture of an infant. Picture of a lively boy. That sounds about right, unless there's... No, we already pressed it once. We don't want to press it twice, because that'll screw up the puzzle. And I guess young man would be the next one, since there's no teenager. A picture of an angsty teen. Middle-aged man. This puzzle isn't nearly as fancy as it is in the remake, which has a bunch of colored lighting and such. It's just a lively boy. Old man, and then the picture is entitled The End of Life. So we hit this one, and it'll trigger the puzzle if you did it correctly. Now, if you screw up the puzzle, and then press that switch, all of these crows will start attacking you, because I guess it electrifies the pole they're standing on. Star Crest. If I remember correctly, we're not going to need this for a little while either. Alright, we already took care of the zombies. I think one of the biggest differences between this version and the remake is that in the remake you have to worry about zombies you've already killed too, because some of them will turn into Crimson Heads, angry, fast zombies that will chase you all over the place and wreck your shit. Luckily, we don't have to worry about that, so we can just kind of blast away willy-nilly. Well, not too willy-nilly, because ammo is still a problem. Please die. There we go. Exactly as many shots as we had left to kill him. Oh, and a green herb. Now this is a room we're going to be visiting a bit, because right here we've got the first save room of the game. Or safe room, I guess. Either one really applies. They're rooms that have a typewriter in them, no enemies, and one of these, an inventory box. Through some sort of magical fourth dimension, all of the inventory boxes in the game are connected, so you can dump stuff in this one and pick it up from any other one. Also, there are 2 clips in here? I don't think that's in the remake. It's probably a Jill thing, though. Dump our combat knife, our star crest, our shotgun, and take out those 2 clips. Now, it's worth pointing out, if you're unfamiliar with the game, that there is no way for you to drop items from your inventory. So if you find a puzzle item you need, and your inventory is full, your only options are to either fire off enough bullets to reload your gun, use up one of your healing items, or go back to an inventory box to clear some space. So it's always important to try to keep extra slots in your inventory. It's one of the reasons why it's harder to play as Chris, since you only get the 6 slots. Also found some chemical. which is the first case where examining will come in handy. Now you can do this with pretty much any item in the game, well, actually really any item in the game, which will pull up this little 3D model of it. You can look around. For some of them, you have to examine specific spots to get the effect, but for this one, we just hit X anywhere, and it'll tell us it is a chemical to kill weeds. Not sure why you'd want to kill weeds when all the weeds around here apparently have magical healing properties, but who knows. We're also going to dump our first aid spray because it's a full heal item, so we don't really want to waste that if we don't have to. Alright, so we're going to use our ink ribbons to save. Actually, let's not save just yet. I'm going to quickly go upstairs and check the rooms above us, and then come back down here and finish the episode. Alright, so first things first, reload the gun. It's also worth pointing out that there's no reload button, so you can't just reload whenever you feel like it. You either have to use up a whole clip and then reload, or do what I just did, which is kind of known as the tactical reload, where you pause the game in the menu, quickly dump your clip into your gun, and then get back to shooting. Alright, we got some more folks hanging out up here. I guess we can't hit him from this spot. Shit. That was close. And he's dead. Right. Locked. Armor. We could kill that other guy, but honestly, we don't really need to just yet. On an overall basis, it's better to conserve ammo in this game than it is to just blast every enemy you see, because you won't really have enough ammo to kill everything in the game. Another herb. Wood is put in the stove. Paper is on the wall. Jill is very observant, as you can tell. Almost as observant as Barry. And that door's locked. Okay, let's try not to run into this guy. I always try to back away from them when they go down like that, because sometimes they will go into their, fake down state and immediately grab your foot if you don't move. But this guy is definitely dead. Doorknob's broken. And this one was locked from this side. Okay, there's a zombie there. Nothing uncommon. One of the many things in this game that would become a survival horror trope is being able to search everything, even if there's nothing useful there. This just tells you about herbs. You can pause and read through it if you want. But it explains the healing system. It also counts as a document, so it doesn't actually use up any space in our inventory. And this is, of course, the door that has the broken doorknob. I don't know if we can go back through it. And, yeah, I think that'll do it for episode 1. Now, one thing I was thinking of doing is I want to do this same early section of the game, but on the remake version, just to kind of give you an idea of how different they look. So yeah, look forward to that. And I'm going to keep going with this game. Hopefully I can get it finished and fully released by the 30th, since, you know, October. But I don't feel that the only month of the year to celebrate horror should be October. So if we carry on past that, then we do, and that's just circumstances. But it is a fairly short game, especially compared to later ones, so we should be able to get through it. Save our progress. You can see that there is a save game already, but that's just where I ran through the first area to make sure that I could record this properly. Alright, so that's been episode 1 of Let's Play Resident Evil. I'm Shadefyre as always, and remember, whatever you do, don't open that door. Jill is not amused.